following program is intended for listeners who are blind, have low vision, or another print disability that makes reading, holding a book, or even turning a page difficult, if not impossible. The content is copyrighted by the respective publishers. For more information, please visit us on the web at nfradioreading.org. The Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service now presents a reading of articles and features from USA Today for Thursday, July the 16th, 2026. Your readers today,
Jim Duffy
and Ken Drost. Opening up with the front page, Congress has its eyes on a controversial federal agency. A bipartisan bill takes a stab at fixing FEMA. Dinah Voiles-Pulver of USA Today writes, "For millions of Americans who experience a destructive flood, wildfire, or other disaster, the Federal Emergency Management Agency often represents hope for relief. As the nation moves through hurricane season and watches a strengthening El Nino that could intensify extreme weather events through the fall and winter, the Federal Disaster Relief Agency has been in turmoil for 18 months. Even before his second inauguration, President Donald Trump raised the possibility of abolishing the agency and turning its work over to state and local governments. Days after taking office, he ordered a FEMA review. Now, during the DOGE era, thousands of employees departed through terminations, buyouts, and other measures. At least 4 people have served as acting FEMA chief in the new administration and its parent agency, the Department of Homeland Security. They're on their second secretary. And then questions arose about the agency's response to the deadly Kerr County, Texas flooding in July of 2025. The advocacy organization Sabotaging Our Safety has leveled criticisms about FEMA's ability to respond to disasters. In light of staffing shortages and other issues at the beleaguered agency. Members of Congress have also questioned its readiness to respond to catastrophic disasters. And now, Congress is taking up a bipartisan bill filed in the summer of 2025 aimed at fixing FEMA. July 15th, the House Committee on Transportation and Infrastructure is set to hold a hearing to consider FEMA reforms, including the bill which would take FEMA out of Homeland Security and make it a cabinet-level agency, again reporting directly to the president. House and Senate Democrats also are demanding answers about whether department resources were unlawfully directed toward immigrant enforcement and whether partisan politics are playing an outsized role in the agency's disaster decisions. Now, given the attention from Congress and the pending confirmation of Cameron Hamilton to return as FEMA chief, a post he briefly held in 2025, observers say they hope to see emerging answers to ongoing questions about the agency's mission in the months to come. FEMA continues moving forward, preparing for hurricanes with agency partners and responding to disasters as it has done. Robert Ashe, FEMA's acting Region 4 administrator, told USA Today last May. Now, agency leadership is very focused on making sure FEMA is prepared, according to Ashe. Our preparation is the same every year. The President's FEMA Review Council finished its work in May, releasing a long list of suggested reforms. At the time, Homeland Security Secretary Markwayne Mullin said, "The administration is driving ahead, transforming FEMA into a streamlined mission-focused agency that delivers results." FEMA did not respond to a recent USA Today request for additional information. Critics and supporters agree change is needed, according to Josh Morton, president of the International Association of Emergency Managers, USA. "I don't think you're going to find an emergency manager in the United States, including the employees at FEMA, that would disagree with the statement. We need changes, said Morton. Now, he's the director of emergency management in Saluda County, South Carolina. FEMA's processes are overly complicated. Programs are extremely complex, and it's very difficult at times to navigate the federal system. Among the questions being debated are what the agency's response should look like for survivors waiting for help after the next disaster, how the responsibility is divvied up among the state, local, and federal government, and who foots the bills. In Winona, North Carolina, Beth Trigg saw hundreds of homes damaged or destroyed in her community by the remnants of Hurricane Helene in 2024. Her home was one of the few that survived in her neighborhood. All around her neighbors are at various stages of the FEMA relief process. In the immediate aftermath of Helene, Trigg began helping her neighbors and then the broader community navigate the intricacies of disaster relief at the federal, state, and local levels. For storm survivors, navigating those processes to secure disaster relief is like a full-time job, Trigg said. People who are computer savvy and college educated with flexible jobs that allow them to navigate the online process have an advantage, she said. There are thousands of people in our community who have not been able to do that. They needed support, she said. Nonprofits have been catching people who fall through the cracks, and there's a lot of very big cracks. We don't think FEMA needs to be destroyed or eliminated, said Trigg, who co-founded the nonprofits Winona Communities, together with her sister after Helene. But it does need to be redesigned to meet community needs in a better way, she said. FEMA's mission, bureaucracy, and effectiveness have long been scrutinized, particularly after large disasters like Hurricane Katrina and Hurricane Andrew. It's been the subject of numerous Government Accountability Office reports and ongoing conversations about how to be responsive but accountable while safeguarding against fraud. The latest criticism has come from Democrats in the House and the Senate. On July 10, Democratic staff with a House subcommittee released a report alleging Homeland Security improperly diverted FEMA resources to support immigration enforcement without legal authority. Among a list of allegations, the report said Homeland Security had instructed FEMA teams to provide special assistance to counties deemed to be presidential priorities because of the country's voting record. A group of Democratic senators also has asked the Trump administration to provide a breakdown of disaster declarations to explain whether it's harder under the current administration for blue states to get disaster funding. Craig Fugate, who served as FEMA administrator in the Obama administration and as Florida's emergency management chief under 2 Republican governors, is scheduled to speak during the July 15 hearing on the bipartisan Fixing Emergency Management for Americans Act. This won't be the first time the agency has had to rebuild, Fugate told USA Today. What worries me isn't that FEMA can't rebuild, he said. History says it can. What worries me is the clock. As Fugate sees it, the agency's greatest vulnerability would come if it was called to manage multiple catastrophic events at the same time, while supporting ongoing disasters and recoveries. The agency's cupboard is not bare, Fugate said. FEMA still has talented people and experienced leaders, he said, including Bob Fenton, who's now serving as acting chief and expected to return to his position as Region 9 administrator. Fenton is arguably one of the most experienced disaster managers in the world. John Scardena, an emergency management consultant and host of the Disaster Tough podcast, also has praised the experienced staff that remain at FEMA after talking with friends inside and outside of the agency. I think that FEMA is in a much better position than what some believe, according to Scardina. After serving briefly as acting administrator in 2025, Hamilton was ousted by then Homeland Security Secretary Kristi Noem in May of 25, after telling Congress it wasn't in the best interest of the American people to eliminate FEMA. A former Navy SEAL, a combat veteran, and crisis response official, President Donald Trump nominated Hamilton to the post again in May. Bringing Hamilton back shows a commitment to keeping FEMA. In a September 3rd, 2025 episode of Scardina's podcast, Hamilton said it makes sense to phase FEMA out of certain elements of response and recovery. Addressing the agency's mission creep and expanding scope requires engagement and partnership, Hamilton has said. He immediately began that engagement after his appointment last year. He started reaching out to state and local emergency managers and others to learn more. Now that continued even after he was dismissed, according to Morton. For a year now, Hamilton has been getting out, meeting everybody, talking to people, and learning as much as he could about emergency management at the state level, the local level, and the federal, Morton said. I think that he's going to do a great job, and he's going to be able to move FEMA forward in ways that we have not seen in a long time. During a May confirmation hearing, Hamilton told a Senate committee he would ensure that FEMA is objective, fair, and reasonable, that it follows the law and is consistent in evaluating disaster declaration requests. He also pledged to restore the American people's faith in the agency and its vital mission. Morton said he's much more optimistic than he was at this time last year about the agency's leadership and its future, especially now that the get rid of the FEMA narrative is gone. The kind of collaboration that makes a successful disaster relief operation is what's needed to propel things forward. In this case, Morton said, let's fix the problems and let's work together to do it. Much of FEMA's mission is spelled out in legislation and will require congressional action to change. That will take time, he said, joking that people don't use the term an act of Congress for nothing. We have the FEMA Review Council report, but now we've got to kind of see where Congress is going to go with this, he said. It's a fun time to be alive in emergency management.
Outrage over lack of body cameras. Few in ICE wear them, and there are no videos of shootings. From Michael Loria of USA Today. One of the nation's most controversial law enforcement agencies continues to operate largely without body cameras, despite promises to do so. $20 million in funding for the technology and a mounting death toll amid aggressive enforcement tactics. In less than a week, U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement officers fatally shot a 52-year-old Houston area construction worker and a 25-year-old man in Biddeford, Maine. Officers behind the shootings said they were justified in firing because the men posed a threat. In both cases, the men were targeted for traffic stops by agents who had mistaken them for immigrants, whom officials said had been ordered to leave the country. In the wake of the deaths, which have sparked protests in both cities, the Trump administration issued an order on July the 14th aiming to limit ICE's traffic stops, Reuters reported, citing two sources briefed on the matter. Then, on July 15th, President Trump announced on social media that agency would continue conducting traffic stops. In neither shooting were ICE officials wearing body cameras, which have become synonymous with accountability in modern policing and can serve to back up what officers say happened or uncover wrongdoing. The deaths come 5 months after ICE issued a policy on February 19th mandating the use of body cameras during immigration enforcement activities. The Department of Homeland Security officials told USA Today the officers involved in each shooting weren't wearing body cameras because back-to-back Democrat shutdowns delayed the rollout of the devices.
You're listening to a reading of today's USA Today on the Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service. The time is 12:15.
Continuing, U.S. Senator Susan Collins, a Maine Republican, said in a statement on July 14th that it is extremely unfortunate that the ICE officer involved in the Maine shooting was not wearing a body camera, and also blamed Democrats for the holdup on the rollout of the technology. In a July 15th statement, DHS said that ICE will ensure each arrest team has an individual wearing a body camera. A DHS spokesperson said the cameras are necessary because of increased attacks on officers, and criticized Democrats for slowing down the rollout. Body cameras have been deployed to more than half the field offices, with the remaining half expected to receive them in less than 60 days, the spokesperson said. Here's what you need to know about the shootings and more about why officers were not wearing body cameras. What happened in the recent ICE shootings? In the early morning hours of July the 7th in Houston, ICE officers tried to pull over Lorenzo Salgado Araujo, a 52-year-old Mexican national who worked in construction and was the father of 3 U.S. citizens. According to ICE, Salgado Araujo ignored orders from officers and then weaponized his vehicle in an attempt to run over an agent. The agent fired shots in self-defense and killed Salgado, ICE said. Witnesses who were in the car with Salgado at the time of the shooting called ICE's account of what happened simply false, according to their attorney. ICE later said they thought Salgado was someone else when they tried to stop him. 6 days later, an ICE officer fatally shot Joan Sebastian Guerrero in Biddeford, Maine on July 13th. ICE officers saw him exit the house of someone else who had a removal order and attempted to pull him over, according to the agency. Homeland Security Secretary Mark Wayne Mullen initially said Guerrero weaponized his vehicle, according to comments relayed by Senator Agnes King, a Maine independent. In a later statement to USA Today, ICE said the agent fired after Guerrero attempted to flee the scene, and the agent feared for public safety. In February, then Department of Homeland Security Secretary Kristi Noem promised DHS law enforcement across the country would begin wearing body cameras following the shooting deaths of Renee Good and Alex Preddy, 2 U.S. citizens killed by federal officers in Minneapolis in January. DHS officials described both Good and Preddy as domestic terrorists, though witnesses and bystander videos contradicted those claims. David Hernandez, an immigration enforcement researcher at Mount Holyoke College in Massachusetts, dismissed DHS's explanation that a government shutdown delayed the rollout of body cameras to ICE officers. That's a total lie, because they were the agency that kept functioning during the shutdown, said Hernandez, noting that Congress had already allocated $75 billion to ICE before the shutdown. It's to protect themselves from the reckless and disproportionate violence they use on migrants. They do not have the capacity to apprehend someone without violence. U.S. Representative Sylvia Garcia, a Democrat who represents the Houston area, said blaming the shutdown for a lack of body cameras is ludicrous. They were given $20 million just for this purpose, Garcia told reporters at a news conference following the shooting of Salgado. Kristi Noem pledged in February this year that she was procuring them and sending them to the field. DHS did not respond to questions about why the government shutdowns would have impacted ICE officers receiving body cameras, given that ICE was funded throughout the shutdown. ICE, under Trump, is the highest funded law enforcement agency in the land. Other agencies under DHS, such as the Transportation Security Administration, were without funding during the shutdown. Body cameras became widely used at local law enforcement agencies around the country in the 2010s following outrage over police misconduct cases, particularly the police shooting of Michael Brown in Ferguson, Missouri in 2014. The Obama administration channeled $75 million for body cameras to agencies nationwide following the shooting that helped launch the Black Lives Matter movement. ICE began equipping officers with body cameras in 2021, according to the Brennan Center for Justice, a liberal nonprofit. Houston was among the cities where the agency first began using the devices. The Biden administration ordered federal law enforcement agencies to begin using body cameras in 2022, and by 2024, around 1,000 ICE officers across 5 cities were using the technology, the Brennan Center said. But ICE's brief expansion of body cameras came to a halt. Trump rescinded the order of his Democratic predecessors shortly after coming into office. How many ICE officers use body cameras? In March, former acting ICE Chief Todd Lyons told Congress that around 3,000 out of 13,000 ICE officers were using body cameras, or less than a quarter of officers. It's unclear exactly how many officers ICE employs today. In January, the agency said they had hired and were in the process of training enough people to expand to 22,000 officers. On July 14th, DHS said more than half of ICE field offices had received body cameras, and the rest will receive them within 60 days. U.S. Representative Benny G. Thompson, ranking Democratic member of the Committee on Homeland Security, called the agency's slow rollout truly shameful. ICE has nearly infinite resources at its disposal, as well as enough funding for years, and yet this administration still sends ICE agents into the field without body cameras, Thompson said in a statement to USA Today. In fact, ICE has had cameras in their possession for months that still haven't been deployed to the field. They are purposely dragging their feet. He said that the truly shameful situation sadly tells the American people that ICE believes they are above oversight and won't face any responsibility for their actions. U.S. District Judge Sarah Ellis of the Northern District of Illinois ordered federal officers deployed to Chicago to begin wearing cameras last October, following reports of officers using crowd-control weapons on protesters without warning, threatening bystanders at gunpoint, and other aggressive tactics. What I do have a problem with is if we have allegations that government agents are enforcing the law in a way that violates the Constitution, Ellis told the Department of Justice lawyer who pushed back against the order, don't violate the Constitution. We never have to pull any video from anybody, ever. Ellis' order was never ultimately enforced, and local immigration rights activists on the ground in Chicago told USA Today that they have not noticed officers wearing body cameras. Emmanuel Maulian, a University of Minnesota law school professor, said the reason ICE does not use body cameras is likely to shield themselves. If you don't provide a body cam and know that the only person account of the shooting is a person being killed, then you have a lot more leeway to shape the narrative, Maulian said. What kind of world would they like to operate in? It's one where they can shoot people in cars and get away with it. He added, that's not being cynical, that's a pattern. The Minnesota-based researcher noted how bystander videos of the killing of Freddie in Minneapolis undermined support for one of Trump's campaign promises in the last election, mass deportations. Polling found that support for abolishing ICE surged even among Republicans after the killing of the 37-year-old ICU nurse. Backlash over the killing and Homeland Security initially branding of Freddie as a domestic terrorist ultimately contributed to the sidelining of controversial Border Patrol Chief Greg Bovino, and it is believed to have ultimately contributed to the firing of former DHS Secretary Noem. In the case of at least one survivor of a shooting at the hands of federal immigration enforcement, Homeland Security body camera footage of the incident, Marimar Martinez, a Chicagoan shot by a Border Patrol agent on October the 4th, faced charges of assaulting a federal officer following the shooting. Prosecutors said the agent shot Martinez after she rammed immigration enforcement agents with her car. Instead, the body camera footage from an officer in the vehicle with Agent Charles Exum showed Exum sharply veer into Martinez and then exit his vehicle and shoot her. Exum also had a body camera, but it was not activated. The case was dropped amid mounting evidence in Martinez's favor. Martinez was badly injured, with Exum appearing to brag that he had hit her 5 times and left 7 holes in her body, according to text messages obtained by USA Today. Martinez has since recovered from her wounds. DHS did not respond to questions about whether Exum remains on active duty. Martinez's lawyer, Chris Parente, said that the body camera footage of what happened to his client is beside the point, which is that officers involved in shootings need to be disciplined by DHS and ultimately prosecuted. The body camera was good because it gave you an inside look at these guys, at their mentality, said Parente, who was also a former assistant U.S. attorney for Department of Justice offices in Chicago and Miami. There's no accountability for any of these agents who have shot people, and therefore there's not going to be any change in these agents. Had Exum turned on his body camera, Parente said that the charges against Martinez would have been dropped a lot sooner. He noted for comparison the sea change in policing, that followed from the prosecution of former Minneapolis police officer Derek Chauvin following the murder of George Floyd. Parente added, when officers shoot people in our community, they should be held accountable.
Is it lights out for fireflies? Overall, we are seeing a global decline. Janet Lorkey of USA Today writes, for many Americans, fireflies, or what we call lightning bugs, depending on where you live, are an iconic sign of summer, lighting up warm evenings with their twinkling glow. Fireflies are little beetles in the family Lampyridae. There are more than 175 species of fireflies in the U.S., with several at risk now of extinction, according to the Xerces Society. Now, that's an international nonprofit dedicated to protecting invertebrates and their habitats. In a 2021 study, 18 firefly species in North America, that's about 14%, were considered threatened, including those classified as critically endangered, or vulnerable. While a few generalist firefly species may be doing okay, there is a scientific consensus that overall we are seeing a global decline in fireflies. Scott Hoffman Black, the executive director of the Xerces Society, said in an email. Okay, sorry, the pages are not cooperating in this warm weather. Now here's a closer look at what fireflies really are and how you can help keep the flickering lights shining. The firefly population has slowly been declining for decades, according to the AFP. Many of us grew up with the ubiquitous shining lights of fireflies in our yards, meadows, stream sides, and parks, according to Black. Unfortunately, across the country, we are seeing far fewer fireflies in our landscape. The populations are declining because of the combination of habitat loss, light pollution, insecticide use, and climate change. A firefly's glow just helps it to communicate with other fireflies, especially when searching for a mate. The light is produced by specialized organs beneath the abdomen that take in oxygen. When oxygen mixes with two chemicals called luciferin and luciferase, it produces light with almost no heat, making fireflies one of nature's most efficient light sources. Every firefly species uses a distinct blinking pattern to communicate, according to Insider Science. Now, scientists believe fireflies originally evolved their glow as a warning to predators. Today, they mostly use their flashes to find mates. Each species has its own flashing pattern. In many cases, males blink about every 5 seconds while searching for females, and females respond with flashes of their own about every 2 seconds. But what's causing the decline? They are facing growing challenges from habitat loss, pesticide use, climate change, and light pollution. The insects depend on moist environments and vegetation to survive, and artificial lighting can make it harder for them to spot the flashes they use to attract mates. Although this is likely an underestimate due to insufficient data on more than half of North America's firefly species, at least 18 species are officially listed by the International Union for Conservation of Nature as threatened with extinction. Can the firefly population recover? Oh yeah, there's still hope. I believe that we can restore populations of fireflies and other insect groups like bees and butterflies, Black said. We understand the causes and know the solutions. It's a matter of acting to protect and restore habitats for these important animals. Now, the good news is that helping fireflies does not require major changes, and small efforts can have a big impact on the population over time. For example, just leave your lights on, or just leave on lights that are needed for safety, and where possible, all lights should be on motion detectors. Do not use insecticides unless there is a real economic or human health need. Most landscapes do not need pesticides to thrive, so put away the chemicals. Larval fireflies spend their time underground or under damp logs and leaf litter. Leave some messiness in your garden. Leave the leaves, as decaying leaves are a great habitat for those fireflies. Now, consider that fireflies need the following: darkness, moisture, shelter, and food. Now, even though we tend to think of fireflies primarily in the summer, their adult stage is just one small part of their life cycle. At any time of the year, there may be eggs, larvae, or pupae present, according to the Xerces Society. Fireflies go through 4 life stages, from egg to larva to pupa and adult. And in a process, it's a complete process called metamorphosis. Depending on the species, that journey can take just a few months, or even stretch over several years. Along the way, the insects can look and behave very differently at each stage. Now, there are 3 main types of fireflies. Daytime dark fireflies. Now, those are active only during the day, and they do not produce light. Glowworm fireflies. They're flightless females that produce long-lasting glows. And finally, flashing fireflies, also known as lightning bugs. And they are the best known because of their bright flashes. You're listening to a reading of today's USA Today on the Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service. The time is 12:32.
Darlene Graham is sworn in as senator. She fills the term of her late brother, Lindsey. From Terry Collins of USA Today. Darlene Graham has become the first woman to represent South Carolina in the U.S. Senate, replacing her brother, Republican Senator Lindsey Graham, 3 days after he died. South Carolina Senator Tim Scott and Alabama Senator Katie Britt escorted Darlene Graham into the Senate chambers at the U.S. Capitol in Washington, D.C. on July 14th, and she was sworn into office by longtime Iowa Senator Chuck Grassley, the president pro tempore of the Senate. The swearing-in of 64-year-old Darlene Graham came a day after South Carolina Governor Henry McMaster named her to fill the seat. Lindsey Graham died unexpectedly on July 11th from a life-threatening condition caused by a tear in his aorta, the body's main artery. He was 71. President Trump had urged her appointment in a Truth Social post. Graham will now serve in the Senate until January the 3rd, after which the winner of the closely watched November election will take over. She has no political experience, but Graham has said that with the support of her brother, staff, and colleagues, she feels confident she can do the job. Darlene Graham's presence in the Senate also helps keep the Republican majority intact at a moment when their margin is very thin, and GOP leaders have struggled to accomplish some of Trump's priorities. Speaking after her Senate appointment on July 13th, Graham indicated that she intends to continue the work of her late brother. She described him as an outstanding leader who worked harder than anyone else to make the state, the country, and the world better. It is such a privilege to get to finish some of his important work, and I promise to work hard over the next several months to support the president and carry forward the efforts of my brother on behalf of the citizens of South Carolina and the United States, Graham said. It's unclear if Graham, a married mother of 2 adult kids and a grandmother who has spent most of her professional career in disability services and workforce development, will run for her brother's Senate seat. Lindsey Graham was seeking a 5th term in the Senate after defeating several challengers, most notably Mark Lynch, a wealthy businessman, in South Carolina's Republican primary last month. The senator prevailed over 5 primary challengers in June and was expected to face Democratic nominee Annie Andrews. South Carolina Republicans will have to hold a special primary August 11th to replace Lindsey Graham.
The United States again strikes Iran as blockade ratchets up tensions. Iranian leaders stand firm on their control of the strait. We have a jointly written article by Aaron Mansfield, Joey Garrison, and Michael Loria. President Donald Trump's war on Iran continued to escalate with no end in sight as the two sides vied for control of the Strait of Hormuz. U.S. forces struck Iranian targets again July 15, the 5th day of the renewed hostilities. The 90 minutes of attacks targeted coastal defense systems and cruise missile storage and launch sites on Iran's Greater Tum Island, U.S. Central Command said in a statement. The strikes further degraded Iran's ability to attack commercial shipping in the Strait of Hormuz. Now that followed the July 14th resumption of the U.S. naval blockade on Iranian ports and a 7-hour wave of strikes on dozens of military targets to reduce Iran's ability to threaten commercial shipping. That's according to the United States Central Command. Now they defended those attacks as an effort aimed at saving sailors passing through the strait. U.S. forces are holding Iran accountable for unwarranted aggression that continues to endanger innocent lives. This from Central Command Chief Administration Admiral Brad Cooper in a statement. Now, according to Cooper, Iranian forces had attacked 7 commercial vessels over the preceding week, leaving nearly a dozen civilian crew members killed, missing, or injured. After the naval restrictions, again, against Iran went back into effect, U.S. forces redirected 2 commercial vessels in the strait that were attempting to run the blockade, CENTCOM said on X. The agency did not say which country the ships belonged to. Now, Trump was adamant about the surging U.S. strikes. They'll continue until I say that's enough, he told Fox News in a July 14 interview. The president said he thinks Iran will get serious about reaching a deal. I think they have no choice. However, Iranian leaders promised that further threats from the U.S. would not make them back off from their ambitions of controlling the critical shipping lane that has become the focus of the conflict, state media reported. Citing frustration with the war and Trump's failure to consult with Congress on the matter, Senate Democrats blocked an unprecedentedly large $1.15 trillion annual defense policy bill. The National Defense Authorization Act typically passes with strong bipartisan support. It determines everything from the number of ships, aircraft, and missile systems that are bought to pay raises for the troops and how to address geopolitical threats. Trump started this war without authorization, without a strategy, and without an exit, Senate Minority Leader Chuck Schumer, the Democrat from New York, said in a floor speech. The procedural vote was along party lines and fell short of the 60 votes that was needed to move ahead in the Senate. Every Republican voted in favor except Majority Leader Senator John Thune of South Dakota, who voted no under chamber rules to enter a motion to reconsider. Urging support, Thune accused Democrats of putting politics ahead of security. It's the bill that helps ensure our military is ready today and prepared for tomorrow, he said. Now, the bill had been expected to stall. 9 Democratic members of the Armed Services Committee voted no when the panel considered it back in June. Trump also asked for another $350 billion under budget reconciliation, which would allow the funding to pass without Democratic support. Earlier in the day, Schumer railed against the war on the Senate floor. Our service members are in harm's way. Working families are forking over a fortune at the gas pump and in the grocery aisle. Americans are sick of seeing Trump burn their tax dollars on his misadventures of epic proportions. In a Reuters Ipsos poll released July 13, only 37% of respondents said they approved of the strikes, and about half believe the war has been worth the cost. The poll has a margin of error of 4 percentage points.
Trump will focus on elections in address. He promises big news in primetime speech. From Joey Garrison and Josh Meyer of USA Today. President Trump said he will discuss free and fair elections in his primetime address to the nation July 16th, signaling that he could use the speech to revive grievances over the 2020 election and push for long-stalled legislation to overhaul voting in federal elections. Trump's rare 9 p.m. Eastern Time address comes as he is still pushing unsubstantiated claims to assert that the 2020 election he lost to Joe Biden was stolen, while alleging ahead of the November elections that Democrats cheat to win. I'd rather save it, but it's really big news, Trump told reporters on July 14th in the Oval Office when asked whether he will address election integrity in his remarks. It's really, really big news, and our country has to shape up. That's what we're going to be talking about Thursday. It doesn't get bigger because without free and fair elections, you don't have a country. We'll be discussing other things too, but it will be a very big announcement, he said. Although Trump did not elaborate, Reuters cited an administration official saying the president will address newly declassified intelligence on investigations into U.S. elections and what the White House says are voting machine vulnerabilities. The Federal Bureau of Investigation opened an investigation this year into the 2020 election results in Atlanta's Fulton County, Georgia, a heavily Democratic county in a state Biden narrowly won. The effort was dealt a blow on July 7th when a Trump-appointed federal judge squashed a grand jury subpoena seeking information on 2020 election workers in the county. In January, the FBI seized 2020 ballots and other elections records from the Fulton County Elections Hub and Operations Center. A different federal judge ruled in May that the Bureau may keep those seized records. For weeks after Trump's November 2020 loss to Biden, Trump pushed baseless claims to try to overturn the election outcome, a stretch that culminated with pro-Trump rioters storming the U.S. Capitol on January the 6th of 2021, while Congress was meeting to certify Biden's election win. Numerous courts, election audits, and even Trump's own election specialists in the Justice and Homeland Security departments found no evidence of such voting machine tampering, foreign interference, or widespread fraud. Senator Mark Warner of Virginia, the ranking Democrat on the Senate Intelligence Committee, told USA Today on July 14th that he expects Trump to once again make long debunked claims about voting irregularities, malign foreign interference, and voting machine vulnerabilities in the 2020 election. This has been looked into countless times, and my fear is that either a single piece of intelligence or some dissenting view is going to be taken and magnified on national television and then used as an excuse for Lord knows what, Warner said in an interview. Warner said the fact that Trump is holding a rare national address on the issue is cause for concern that he is seeking to ramp up his efforts to interfere in the administration of the midterm elections rather than leave that to state election officials. This is a president that's not had a lot of national addresses, he said, and he's going to do a nationwide TV address on the subject. I think we all should be worried. Trump, who has long questioned the legitimacy of mail voting, signed an executive order in March seeking to exert federal control over voter rolls and mail-in ballots, but that effort has been blocked in court. Trump this month terminated the 2 Democratic-appointed members of the 4-person Federal Elections Assistance Commission, eliminating the bipartisan panel's ability to help local elections officials prepare for the 2026 midterms. A 3rd member, appointed by Republicans, resigned. Trump repeatedly has urged Republicans in Congress to pass the Save America Act, which would require photo identification and proof of citizenship to vote in federal elections and prohibit universal mail-in voting. The president wants Senate Republicans to abolish the filibuster, the Senate's 60-vote threshold to allow Republicans to pass the legislation with a simple majority in the Republican-controlled body. Yet it's unclear if the proposal has support to pass even without a filibuster. 4 Republicans have signaled opposition to the bill.
Moving into the money section, TikTok creator is trolling AI doctors and therapists. You're listening to a reading of today's USA Today on the Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service. The time is 12:45. Continuing with the actual article, Sarah Moniuszko of USA Today writes, videos are sparking talks about tech in the healthcare space. You may have heard of AI job interviewers. What about AI doctors and therapists? Ty Eveland has amassed millions of TikTok views for videos he posts trolling the technology, and it's sparking conversations about the issues of AI in the healthcare space. If you watch any of my videos, it's very clear that these artificial intelligence doctors and therapists don't know what they're doing, and they can't really respond to anybody in a crisis in the same way that a real human would, according to Eveland. Eveland says he's not paying for any certified medical software for his videos. Instead, he used many AI platforms in which you can ask for AI to act as a doctor, a therapist, or other profession. An artificial intelligence company was recently sued for allegedly misrepresenting its companion bots as licensed medical professionals. The New York-based 23-year-old has filmed himself giving the AI agents a range of fake, out-there scenarios, from asking how to treat a bowling ball-sized pimple to saying he thinks he's pregnant after throwing up a pacifier. They definitely match the energy that you give. Obviously, all my videos are trolling and me being sassy. But then, they're really quick to just spit it back out at me as well, he laughed. It shows that they're not professional because any real doctor would not be matching the sassiness that I've given. In the comments section, viewers agree that the AI agents often sound annoyed, rude, or even condescending. Eveland recognizes actual healthcare platforms that use AI might act differently from the programs he uses for his videos, but his experience has still made him very wary of the technology. I will never be going to an AI doctor, he assured, and several of his commentators shared similar sentiments, with one writing, on a real note, an AI doctor, that's scary. Real-life human doctors say that the videos raise some good points about the flaws of AI. Alan Cohen, chief of pediatric neurosurgery at Johns Hopkins Children's Hospital and the author of Comfort Always, Healing in the Age of Technology, said these videos do a great job of using humor to show some of AI's shortcomings when it comes to the doctor-patient relationship. If artificial intelligence is not managed appropriately, it has a tendency to drive a wedge between the doctor and the patient and the family, Cohen told USA Today. He explained that there was not even a computer technology yet when he started working in pediatric neurosurgery 40 years ago. Now, while he thinks we should embrace AI as a helpful tool, remember that healthcare requires nuance that the computer will not pick up. If we forget that part, the role of the physician at the bedside, developing a relationship with the child and the family, we're not healing the patient. Technology treats the disease. Humanity heals the patient, he said, adding, human kindness, empathy, compassion, controlled optimism are something that a machine can mimic it cannot replace. In terms of therapy, young people and adults alike are turning to ChatGPT and other AI chatbots to vent and to confide in. Relationship therapist Christina Tracy Stein says she's had clients who have consulted with chatbots, but say artificial intelligence often lacks all the context and history of a patient to really understand what somebody is sharing. I think it's dangerous for the conviction of the AI therapist to put a label on somebody because, people, when they're vulnerable, they take that on. They believe it, she said. Plus, so much of being a therapist is not giving feedback on what exactly is said, but the underlying feeling, she explained. I don't know that AI can interpret the energy or the feelings behind the actual words. It's just taking the words and giving back an interpretation, adding that it can miss important nonverbal clues, like somebody's tone or if they're getting all teared up. They don't know that there's more than what's being said. So while experts are raising the alarm on relying solely on AI for their physical and mental health concerns, that doesn't mean that technology is all bad. For people who don't have access to therapy, or really struggling with loneliness, for example, Tracy Stein says it can be helpful to have something as opposed to nothing. But don't take anything AI chatbots say, including diagnoses, as fact. There's some value to having this consistent exchange that's predictable, but it certainly doesn't hold people accountable for their behavior because it's one-sided, she explained, suggesting instead to use it more for organizing your thoughts or having a brainstorming session. The ultimate decision about what's going on should be done by the person or by an actual therapist, not artificial intelligence, she said. Cohen agrees that while AI can be scary, especially at the fast pace it's showing up, it can be a useful tool. He uses it in his practice for helping make diagnoses and comparing large databases of brain tumor scans. It's really good at handling big data quickly, but it isn't going to replace the human touch or the art of healing, he said.
Turning to page 4 of the Money section of USA Today, another article regarding AI. AI feature on Instagram has been disabled after backlash, from Greta Cross of USA Today. Less than a week after implementing a new artificial intelligence image generator, Meta rolled back a feature that received widespread backlash from users. On July the 10th, Meta disabled a feature allowing Instagram users to easily create AI-generated images from photos and videos shared by public accounts. The feature, which was automatically enabled on all Instagram accounts, was introduced on July the 7th, along with Meta's new Muse Image, the tech giant's latest AI image generator. Earlier this week, we announced that one way for people to generate images in Meta AI is by mentioning public Instagram accounts that they want to reference. Our intent was to provide a useful creative tool and to give people control over whether their public content could be referenced in this way, a Meta statement obtained by USA Today on July 10th said. We've heard the feedback that this feature missed the mark, so it's no longer available. But in a TikTok video shared over the weekend, content creator and social media consultant Sarah Whittle reminded viewers any content on the internet can still be used to create AI-generated content. Just because Instagram users can no longer tag specific accounts while using Muse doesn't mean photos can't be pulled over to the AI generator in other ways. Is it good that this public outcry led to some changes? Yeah, but ultimately, this does not change anyone from taking any piece of content online and putting it into another generative tool, Whittle said in her video. What Instagram feature was disabled? Available as part of Meta's newly launched Muse Image, an Instagram user could enter the username of another public user to pull photos and videos from that account to create AI-generated content, as long as this other public user allowed it. Users had the ability to prohibit their content from being used in this way through their profile settings. What were people saying about the feature? The feature that allowed Instagram users at mention other public users to create AI generated images was largely met with criticism, including from several larger organizations. With the dangers of non consensual digital replicas well known to all, a feature that encouraged that behavior is unwise, labor union SAG AFTRA said in a social media statement after the feature was released. We appreciate its discontinuance. It's the responsible thing to do. While some expressed concerns about AI image generation broadly, more appeared upset that the feature was automatically enabled. The tool itself is not the surprising part. The surprising part is still pretending you can turn it off in settings, is meaningful content for normal users, one Reddit user said in the R Technology subreddit. What is Muse Image? What can it do? Muse Image functions in many ways similarly to ChatGPT's image generator. A user may enter a written prompt to create an image from scratch or input videos to alter or create something new. Examples Meta provides in a news release include creating a mock-up of a user at a historical landmark, erasing a photobomber from a group photo, or creating a functional QR code from scratch. Muse can also create text-heavy images like infographics or invitations.
Musical treasure trove to hit Discogs online marketplace. Mike Snyder of USA Today writes, if you love to flip through vinyl LPs at the record store, mark your calendar. A large collection is about to become available to peruse and purchase. Online music marketplace and discography platform Discogs on Friday, July 17th, is going to begin selling the massive personal music collection of acclaimed journalist and author Mikal Gilmore. Now, he who spent 5 decades writing for Rolling Stone has amassed a collection of more than 30,000 items, including many original and first pressings, along with hundreds of promotional copies, advance releases, test pressings, press kits, and other pieces of music history, according to a news release announcing the sale. The first 1,000 items go on sale July 17 on the Discogs website and mobile app at 3 p.m. Eastern Time, noon Pacific. Among the items for sale that day are first pressings of Joni Mitchell's Blue, David Bowie's The Rise and Fall of Ziggy Stardust, and The Spiders from Mars. There are also test pressings of Bad Brains' Rock for Light and New Order's Movement. You're listening to a reading of articles from USA Today for Thursday, July the 16th, 2026, on the Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service. We will return for more readings after the short break. Your readers today,
Jim Duffy
and Ken Drost.
Hello, listeners. Give 716 is happening now. It's an online fundraiser sponsored by the Buffalo Bills and Buffalo Sabres Foundations with dozens of prizes and matching grants available to make your donation to Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service go farther. You'll find a complete list on our Facebook page, but here's what I suggest. Mark your calendar for Thursday, July 16th from 8 p.m. to 11:59 p.m. If you make any size donation to radio reading on Thursday, July 16th from 8 p.m. to 11:59 p.m., we'll automatically enter you in a drawing for a pair of Buffalo Bison's tickets, redeemable for a Tuesday through Thursday home game before August 31st. If you donate $50 or more, you'll also receive your choice of a Buffalo Bills, Sabres, or Bandits pendant and a chance to win an even grander golden ticket one-of-a-kind experience from the Bills and Sabres, like tickets, private tours, and autographed team merchandise. You can go to give716.org anytime before July 17th to make a donation to Radio Reading. Make a donation on Thursday, July 16th from 8 p.m. to 11:59 p.m. to win the extra prizes. That's give716.org. Search for your Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service and make a very important donation supporting our future.
We'll continue now with our reading of articles from today's issue of USA Today. Your readers are
Ken Drost.
and Jim Duffy. And turning to our sports page, Spain asserts its strength and class, from Nancy Armour, a columnist for USA Today. The message Spain coach Luis de la Fuente had for his team was simple. La Roja was going to be facing one of the best teams in the world in France. But Spain, de la Fuente told his team, was the best team. That's the key. We are a team, de la Fuente said. And when you're facing a team like us, we're unbeatable. Hard to argue with him. For 3 summers in a row now, Spain has made Kylian Mbappé and France look mortal, and no victory is bigger than this one. After a dominant 2-0 win over Les Bleus, Spain will play in the World Cup final for the first time since 2010, when La Roja won their only championship. Spain will play either England or Argentina in the World Cup final on July 19th at MetLife Stadium. This is not luck. This is not France, which had been the class of the tournament, having a bad day. This is Spain ruthlessly dismantling France, clogging up the middle, so Mbappé had nowhere to roam, smothering any semblance of attack and finding holes in France's defense and turning them into yawning chasms. This is Spain having the number of what is arguably the second best team in the world and shoving them off the mountain anytime they get close to the top. We knew it would be the most difficult game, but they have spectacular players. But I think we also have them too, Pau Kubarasi said. France didn't play badly. Spain just never let Les Bleus get comfortable. With the exception of a couple of possessions here and there, Spain dictated the pace and rhythm of this game, and France was powerless to do anything about it. Not until the 81st minute did France have its first shot on goal. You read that right. None. Zero. Zip. A team that came roaring into the semifinal offensively, averaging almost 3 goals a game. Couldn't even get a shot off. Mbappé, who leads the Golden Boot race with 8 goals, might as well have been playing in a straitjacket. They closed out all the spaces. And also, we've made some technical mistakes, France coach Didier Deschamps said. It is difficult to create problems when the technical level is below standard, especially compared to previous matches. Spain, meanwhile, was opportunistic in its chances. In the 20th minute, Lucas Digne was careless with his effort to clear a ball, catching Lamine Yamal squarely in the thigh when he tried to clear out a goal. That's about as textbook a penalty as you can get. Mike Magnan guessed correctly and dove to his left, but he went just a touch too late, and Mikel Oyarzabal put the kick just beyond his outstretched hands to put Spain up 1-0. That would have been enough, but Pedro Porro doubled the score in the 58th minute for good measure. I don't want to remove or throw any away everything we've done so far, Deschamps said. We should have been more dangerous on the pitch and made the game more difficult for the Spain team. Or maybe Spain is simply better. It's hard to knock a team that won the World Cup in 2018, played in the final 4 years later, and reached the semifinals at this tournament. It's hard to criticize a player as magnificent as Mbappé, who can usually conjure goals out of thin air. Most countries would sell their souls for a stretch of excellence like that, and to have a player like Mbappé. But it's also hard to ignore that France's trajectory stalled at the same time Yamal and Spain were beginning their rise. Perhaps we should have seen this coming, first at the European Championship in 2024, and again in last summer's Nations League. Spain sent France home in the semifinals. Neither game was much of a contest. Oh, the 5-4 score last summer made it look competitive, except Spain was hammering France 5-1 through 75 minutes, as Yamal reminded everyone a few hours before this semifinal. There's no revenge. The past is in the past, Deschamps said the day before the game. Yes, they did win 2 games, but I'm looking ahead to tomorrow's game. And indeed, if France was ever going to change the narrative against Spain, this was the time to do it. Spain had struggled in its opener, drawing with Cape Verde. It needed a late goal to dispatch pesky Belgium in the quarterfinal. France, meanwhile, had not been tested this tournament. They hadn't even given up a goal since the group stage final. finale, I should say, a stretch that climbed to 358 minutes before Oyarzabal converted his penalty. But Spain is the standard by which France is measured, and once again, Spain did not let Les Bleus measure up.
Rory McIlroy, aiming to fix his game. Adam Schupak of Golf Week writes, first, world number one Scotty Scheffler. Excuse me. First, world number one Scotty Scheffler bowed out of the Genesis Scottish Open on July 10, missing his first cut in 78 starts, nearly 4 years. Then, world number two Rory McIlroy muttered on July 12th, "Oh my God, I am so bad at golf," after a particularly poor shot at the 16th hole. Now, there may be hope for the rest of the 156-man field to pick off a major this week at the 154th British Open, after all. So how is McIlroy feeling about his game after a couple of days to work on his game? Well, it depends what hour of the day you get me, I think. It's funny, I really feel good the first 2 days in Scotland, and then I felt like my game just sort of deteriorated as the week went on. Now, even though I shot a good score on Sunday, it didn't feel very good. McIlroy, who's 37, rallied to finish tied for 7th, his 4th top 10 finish in 10 starts this season. But he was a non-factor last month at the U.S. Open at Shinnecock Hills. The 2014 British Open champion at Royal Liverpool has 8 top 10 finishes in 16 career starts at the championship, and he finished T4 the last time it was contested at Royal Birkdale in 2017. Having repeated as Masters champion in April, McIlroy is looking to nab his 7th career major and join a select group to amass that total that includes the likes of Bobby Jones, Sam Snead, and most recently, Arnold Palmer. Now that would also break a tie with Nick Faldo for most majors in the modern era among Europeans and tie him with Harry Vardon. I've done a good bit of work the past couple days, again, getting the TrackMan out, seeing what my numbers are, just trying to match up the feels of my swing with what I'm seeing, McIlroy said of his recent prep. This was after playing 30 holes on Sunday. I felt, a little bit tired yesterday, so I didn't make it on the course. But that allowed me a bit more time to hit some balls and dig into the swing a little bit. I felt good on the range, felt good on the course today. Definitely trending in the right direction. Now, McIlroy certainly aims to go down as the greatest European-born player. But to hear him tell it, he's not wasting time contemplating his legacy. I think it would be a pretty unfulfilling pursuit if you're just chasing records and chasing results. You have to enjoy the process. You got to enjoy the journey to get there. Now, I learned that the hard way at times by chasing results and chasing records too much. You start to focus on your craft and your practice and doing the things you need to do to try to become a better golfer. And then, if you do that, the results and the winning almost take care of themselves. Or at least you put yourself in a position enough to at least step through the door a few times. He added, if all you're thinking about is winning and results, you're playing the wrong game. Now, ask what his main motivation will be when he steps onto the first tee on July 16 at the 154th Open. McIlroy said, "Seeing how good I can be, seeing if the work I put in and the practice that I put in can stand up to the most intense pressure that we are under, which is a major championship."
Short track, a long-loved relic. Historic NASCAR track was left for dead until Dale Jr. helped revive it. From Mitchell Northam of USA Today, If you asked most drivers a decade ago if they thought North Wilkesboro Speedway would ever host a NASCAR Cup Series race ever again, they likely would have shaken their head and laughed. It seemed like an impossible task to revive the track that hadn't held a NASCAR-sanctioned race since 1996. I'd seen some pictures, and I knew how bad of a shape it was in, said Chris Boucher, driver of the number 17 Ford for RFK Racing. When I saw pictures of that place originally, I'm like, there's no way they're going to get this place to become a points-paying race in the future, said Zane Smith, driver of the number 38 Ford for Front Row Motorsports. And they proved me wrong. So it's awesome. It looks great, and hopefully we put on a show there. Indeed, North Wilkesboro has risen from its grave. This weekend, for the first time in 30 years, the .6225-mile short track in Wilkes County, North Carolina, is going to have a points race for NASCAR's top-level Cup Series. The green flag on the Window World 450 will drop at 7 p.m. Eastern Time on July 19th. The culmination of a lot of hard work and money spent by NASCAR Speedway Motorsports, the state of North Carolina, and Dale Earnhardt Jr. For the last 3 years, North Wilkesboro has hosted NASCAR's All-Star Race, bringing it back to the point where that was even possible, and was a long and windy road with plenty of bumps, stops, and starts along the way. That's one of those, it's like Martinsville. Veteran driver Denny Hamlin said, one of the grassroots tracks that definitely is part of our history and needs to be a part of our future as well. North Wilkesboro is emblematic of stock car racing's history as any venue on the schedule. It was originally built so moonshiners in the hills of western North Carolina could settle who had the fastest machine to outrun the law. It opened in 1947, simply as an oval of red dirt, and soon became an iconic stop on the schedule. Even Pixar's Cars franchise knew inspiration from the track. Junior Johnson, the man Tom Wolfe called the last American hero, raced there. Richard Petty took the checkered flag 15 times, and Darrell Waltrip captured 10 victories at North Wilkesboro. Dale Earnhardt Sr. and Cale Yarborough had moments there, as did Buck Baker, Lee Petty, and Terry Labonte. But then the 1990s rolled around, a time when NASCAR's popularity was skyrocketing. There was a time during that decade when 14 of the 31 races on the Winston Cup Series schedule were held in just 4 states, an area that stretched south to Darlington, South Carolina, north to Richmond, Virginia, and west to Bristol, Tennessee. NASCAR and the operators of its tracks had expansion in mind to the west and north with the goal of reaching untapped audiences. NASCAR's oldest tracks, like North Wilkesboro, became casualties. Then CEO of Speedway Motorsports, Bruton Smith, bought a portion of the North Wilkesboro Speedway in 1995, and Bob Bayer bought the other. By 1997, North Wilkesboro's pair of race dates on the NASCAR Cup Series calendar vanished, with one going to Texas and the other to New Hampshire. Jeff Gordon won the 93rd and, at that time, final Cup Series race there on September 29th of 1996, taking the checkered flag in the Tyson Holly Farms 400. Speedway Motorsports had total control of the North Wilkesboro Speedway by 2007, but the track was largely left for dead, aside from a handful of low-tier races between 2009 and 2011. Weeds sprouted, windows were broken, garages had collapsed, bleachers were damaged, the pavement cracked, and the rust made itself a home. NASCAR haulers would pass by sometimes on their way to Bristol, with drivers and other folks around the sport thinking about what the venue once was. Then, in 2019, Dale Earnhardt Jr. got an idea. Voted NASCAR's most popular driver 15 times, the 2-time Daytona 500 winner, had retired from full-time racing after the 2017 season, but was enamored with the iRacing video game. If NASCAR couldn't return to North Wilkesboro, perhaps it could be cleaned up enough to have it scanned for the video game, preserving its history in a digital space. You're listening to a reading of today's USA Today on the Niagara Frontier Radio reading service. The time is 1:15. Continuing, Boucher was one of more than a dozen who joined Earnhardt at the track for the cleanup. They went to work with weed eaters, hauled away debris, and did enough tidying up to have the speedway scanned for the video game. The makers of iRacing restored North Wilkesboro to its 1987 version, a year in which Earnhardt Sr. and Labonte won the pair of races there. I remember Dale riding around on the street sweeper, just making laps, just smiling ear to ear, covered in mud. Busher recalled this past weekend at Echo Park Speedway, just south of Atlanta. I remember going around and just having the understanding that it was to get it scanned and preserved in a digital world, knowing that it probably wasn't going to make it beyond that. It's pretty remarkable to see where it's gotten to now. Then in 2020, the COVID pandemic struck. With it came the American Rescue Plan Act, a $1.9 trillion federal bill signed into law by President Joe Biden. In February 2021, North Carolina's congressional delegation split along party lines in voting for the economic stimulus package, with all 5 Democrats voting for it and all 8 Republicans voting against it. North Carolina Republican Senators Richard Burr and Tom Tillis also voted against it. It passed anyway. When those funds came across the desk of former North Carolina Governor Roy Cooper, now running for a U.S. Senate seat, he thought about North Carolina's history with motorsports and what an economic driver NASCAR is for the state. He allocated $18 million from those funds in the state budget to Wilkes County for improvements to the speedway. When you think about North Carolina, you think about motorsports, Cooper said in 2023, and you think about the economics of it all. Clearly, it puts money in the pockets of everyday North Carolinians. But it's so much more than that. It's a sport that's ingrained in our state and in our culture. With that, Speedway Motorsports and current CEO Marcus Smith announced a multi-million-dollar renovation project in early 2022. Months later, the Cars Tour, a late-model stock car racing series co-owned by Earnhardt, held a race there that drew more than 20,000 fans. In a number 3 splashed with a green sun-drop paint scheme, Earnhardt finished third. I think that gave Marcus a confidence, Earnhardt said in 2023, referencing the Cars Tour event. It goes against the idea of growing and getting bigger and going west and more nationwide and global, if you will. It had a lot of things working against it. So it's pretty incredible to be back and for the track to get in such great shape. By the time NASCAR's All-Star race arrived there in the summer of 2023, how the funds were used was apparent. Plumbing, lighting, and fencing were all improved. Wi-Fi had been added, and the infield was paved. Seating was restored, and buildings had been fixed. Nothing was falling. There was a lot of new, but much of the venue's old charm and character remained, like the metal seats in the main grandstands, the Tyson-branded scoreboard, and the weathered Winston Cup Series sign that welcomes fans at the entrance. I'm as nostalgic as it gets, said Carson Hocevar, the 23-year-old driver of the number 77 Chevrolet, who wasn't born the last time North Wilkesboro had a points race. So when I walk in and see Winston, I think that's super cool. According to an analysis from Cooper's office, the 2023 NASCAR All-Star race and events around it increased the value of the statewide economy by $42.4 million, boosted statewide labor income by $27.9 million, generated nearly $29 million in visitor spending, and created 625 jobs. After the race, North Carolina lawmakers earmarked another $4 million to Speedway Motorsports for repairs, renovations, and other capital improvements at North Wilkesboro, with the caveat that Speedway Motorsports had to bring another NASCAR race there before 2028. That box was quickly checked as the All-Star race and points races in the Craftsman Truck Series returned in 2024 and 25. Before the 24 race weekend, the track was repaved for the first time since 1981. Construction crews making improvements also found a 700-foot square open area under the grandstand, an area that would have been a perfect fit for a moonshine still. North Wilkesboro has that throwback feel, said Steve Letarte, Earnhardt's former crew chief and now a broadcaster with TNT and Amazon, told USA Today Sports. They've done a nice job of upgrading it without taking away its identity. You feel like you're in the 90s, but with 2020's amenities. I believe the garage is getting ready to be reminded of the nuances of North Wilkesboro that makes it so special. It's a true test of car, driver, patience, strategy. One corner is higher than the other. One radius is tighter than the other. It's fair to say that most drivers are happy to see North Wilkesboro back on the schedule, and that's for a variety of reasons. Christopher Bell likes the pure short track racing there, but like Hamlin, Eric Jones is proud to see NASCAR returning to its roots. I think it's important for us as a sport to play into our strong suits and go where we're welcomed. You go where you're celebrated, not tolerated, said Jones, driver of the number 43 Toyota. I think NASCAR's really tried to lean into that more. And us going to Wilkesboro, I think it's definitely celebrated. Most drivers would also agree that there's little chance North Wilkesboro would have been resurrected without Earnhardt taking the initiative in 2019 and nudging key decision makers. I would think within our sport, he's certainly the most influential, Hamlin said of Dale Jr., and when he went on a journey to revive the racetrack, it just seems like he made it happen. Added Boucher, I felt like that was a push from Dale and a movement that he created and got a lot of people behind it in a lot of ways, and it worked. This weekend, alongside Latarde and Adam Alexander, Earnhardt will call the Cup Series race as part of TNT Sports broadcast team. From the top of the grandstands, he'll have a great view of all this hard work coming to fruition.
Moving into Major League Baseball and the All-Star Game, Bellinger's absence and return worth the wait. Bob Nightingale of USA Today writes, "It was a Major League Baseball All-Star Game that will be remembered for the sheer pitching dominance, the offensive ineptitude, players holding sparklers in front of the dugout, fireworks shooting up in the air, kids riding bicycles on the field, a star player who nearly broke his hand, but missing that one magical moment." Now, instead, it was a seemingly harmless 2-run first-inning single by a former MVP participating in his first All-Star game in 7 years, whose hit proved to be worthy of the All-Star MVP award. New York Yankees outfielder Cody Bellinger, who stood in front of his locker before the game July 14, reminiscing when he was the National League's MVP for the LA Dodgers at the age of 24, and 6 hours later, sitting behind a podium holding the MVP award after the American League's 4-0 victory. Now, Bellinger is the 4th Yankee to win the All-Star MVP, joining Derek Jeter, Mariano Rivera, and Giancarlo Stanton, and also the first in Major League Baseball history to win Rookie of the Year, LCS MVP, All-Star MVP, and a World Series title. "That's pretty special," said Bellinger, who's 31. "My first few years in the big leagues, I was here 2 of my first 3 years. I was like, oh, I'll be back here every year. Took a long time to get back. It's hard to be an all-star, you know? Health, performance, it all has to come together. Honestly, this one, I just really enjoyed it." Really, Bellinger was one of the few hitters in the 96th All-Star Game to actually have a satisfying evening. There were a record 27 strikeouts, the most in a 9-inning All-Star Game, including 15 by the American League pitchers. There was only 1 extra base hit the entire game, an 8th-inning homer by Chicago White Sox infielder Miguel Vargas, one of 26 first-time All-Stars. It's not really fair. I don't know how those guys can even hit the way guys are throwing, Cleveland Guardians closer Cade Smith said. "Everybody's motion is completely unique. Then there's the different release points, arm angles. I wouldn't say I feel sorry for them, but I don't understand how they do what they do. It's very impressive. That's a hard line of work for sure." While the game was rather dull, it was the city of Philadelphia that stole the show. MLB broke out an old-fashioned piece of Americana after the 4th inning with kids coming from the center field gates on bicycles, camping out by the All-Stars on the field. Some trading baseball cards, others playing catch, like 14-year-old Noah with Dodgers first baseman Freddie Freeman. That was pretty cool, pretty fun, said Freeman, who spoke to the team before the game along with Bryce Harper and Chris Sale, who had a combined 29 All-Star appearances. I was telling them, appreciate the game. Take a step back. Make sure you realize how special this is. So make sure you take a step back and realize it's not just you making it. It's your parents, your friends, everybody who helped you along the way. Now, Bellinger, the son of former Yankees infielder Clay Bellinger, indeed heeded that advice. Watching the kids come out onto the field riding their bikes, resurrecting memories for Bellinger growing up in Chandler, Arizona, and playing ball every day with all of the neighborhood kids. I think it was special, Bellinger said. We do play a kid's game. We're all little kids at heart playing this game, even though it's a challenging game. But ultimately, we all fell in love with the game at a young age. We're all still those little kids with big dreams. We're just out here playing a game. It's always nice to have that perspective. It was a really good weekend. And, well, perhaps no one enjoyed it more than Bellinger, who was living, breathing testament to how difficult it is to make the All-Star game. He hit 8 homers with 38 RBIs in his first 2 months of the season, hitting .304 in May, but wound up battling just .226 with 3 homers and 13 RBIs in June and July. It's just hard, man, Bellinger told USA Today Sports before the game. You don't get off to a hot start, and then you get like a decent May and you have a good June. It's too late. It just depends on your starts. And it's hard to hit in April. It's just cold. Look no further than Hall of Famer Robin Yount, who produced 3,142 hits for the Milwaukee Brewers, but only made 3 All-Star games. That's just crazy, Bellinger says. That just shows you how hard it is. And the pitching today, man, you see it. It's just unbelievable. Yes, a night like Tuesday, when the best hitters in the world can step to the plate 69 times, produce just 9 singles and 1 homer, with 23 hitters striking out at least once, and Dodgers starter Justin Verlander becoming the first pitcher to strike out 5 batters in an All-Star game since Pedro Martinez in 1999. You realize just how utterly dominant the pitching is in today's game. Yeah, tell me about it, Bellinger said. Just unbelievable, isn't it?
57 years since an Englishman won the Open, from Adam Schupak of Golf Week and the USA Today Network. The English are coming, the English are coming. Paul Revere is nowhere to be found, but 20 English golfers are in the field this week at the 154th Open at Royal Birkdale, attempting to become the first English champion to have his name etched on the claret jug on home soil in 57 years. Nick Faldo was the last English winner of the Open in 1992, while Tony Jacklin remains the last English victor at home back in 1969. This might be the best chance to end the curse. This is the one, certainly for an English player, said Justin Rose. It's been a long time, and hopefully I can be the guy to knock off that curse. And you have to say that is exactly what it is, a curse. There's no getting around how long this has been going on. Jacklin won his first of 2 majors at Royal Lytham and St. Anne's in 1969. Faldo hoisted 3 claret jugs in Scotland, the last of them at Muirfield in 1992. But this year, the English contingency includes 3 of the top 10 players in the official World Golf Ranking: Matt Fitzpatrick, Tommy Fleetwood, and Rose. 6 ranked in the top 50 and 11 in the top 100, a staggering improvement from 25 years ago when there was 1. You're listening to a reading of today's USA Today on the Niagara Frontier Radio reading service. The time is 1:30. Continuing, let's see where I leave off. Okay, yes. That honor belonged to Lee Westwood. He is among the Old English Guard consisting of Paul Casey, Luke Donald, Ian Poulter, and Rose, who won titles big and small, cashed checks for millions, and starred on victorious Ryder Cup teams. But they claimed one major among them, Rose's 2013 U.S. Open. It's one of those crazy things that none of them have won the Open, said Jacqueline. It boggles the mind. An Englishman has won other majors, including Faldo in 1996 and Danny Willett in 2016 at the Masters, Fitzpatrick at the U.S. Open in 2022, and most recently Aaron Ray at the PGA Championship in May. Rory McIlroy knows how hard it can be to play in front of the home crowd. He flamed out of the 2019 Open at Royal Portrush in Northern Ireland, missing the cut, but handled the pressure better in his second go-round last year, finishing tied for 7th. No one will quite face as much pressure as Tommy Fleetwood, the world number 9, who grew up 5 minutes from Birkdale and is the pride of Southport. It's an absolute dream to play here in my hometown in front of people that are all here to support me, he said. I'm no different to any other person in terms of every single person that is playing in the Open, dreams of winning in the Open, and wants to win it. There's really nothing different to anybody else in that sense. I just think I am the lucky one that gets to have home support and use that as really feel positive fuel. Fitzpatrick, the world number 3, knows what it's like to win a major and seems to have finally figured out his home Open. He finished tied for 4th last year, his first top 10 in 10 tournament appearances. He's already notched 3 titles this season, and with the win this week would have become the first player from England in the modern era to earn 4 wins in a season on the PGA Tour. The big difference for Fitzpatrick has been improving his iron play. My irons have never really been a strength. I've had good seasons, but never really taken advantage of that. I don't feel like, whereas now I feel like I've got that, he said. I think sort of the level of experience and maturity I have, I guess, with playing and being in these situations is obviously much better now, even than before 2022. Rose, who is number 10 in the world and making his 23rd Open Championship appearance, with runner-up finishes in 2018 and 2024, is seeking at 45 to become the oldest major winner since Phil Mickelson won the 2021 PGA Championship at age 50. Rose was a young buck when he holed a 45-yard pitch shot at the final hole at Birkdale to finish as the low amateur and win the silver medal, tying for 4th at the 1998 Open. The best finish for an amateur since 1953, and the best finish for a 17-year-old since young Tom Morris won the thing in 1868. There's no bigger buzz I've ever experienced than that moment on the 18th green when that pitch shot went in, Rose said. There's no doubt about it. I think I've had a satisfying moments on the golf course, but never quite that same sort of buzz. If those big 4 don't crack the code, perhaps Tyrell Hatton, Alex Fitzpatrick, Matt's younger brother, or even Joe Dean, a former grocery delivery driver who won last chance qualifier on Monday, could make England proud.
Spain imposes a suffocating defense. To finalize the World Cup news today, John Arnold of USA Today writes from Arlington, Texas, "It finally happened in the 81st minute of a 90-minute match. The most fearsome attack in the world put a shot on target. France manager Didier Deschamps had headaches selecting which of his top-class attackers to play, putting fearsome foursomes on the field, spearheaded by Kylian Mbappe, spurred on by the creativity of Michael Olise, and with Ballon d'Or winner Ousmane Dembele on one wing. They had smashed through teams, scoring 6 goals in 3 knockout matches on the way to the semifinal July 14th. And then it met Spain. The Desiree Doué shot from outside the box in the 81st, and 2 shots by Dembele from tight angles in the 96th and 97th minute, as France desperately tried to break through, were the only efforts they were able to put on Spain. Goalkeeper Unai Simon over the course of 90 minutes. Once again, these teams met in a semifinal. Once again, France is out, with Spain winning 2-0, thanks to a goal on either side of halftime. I am very happy. I'm happy because we kept a clean sheet, said right back Pedro Porro, who also scored a goal in the triumph. We knew it was an important game in that aspect. That first we had to strengthen things at the back because they have very good players. Well, it had happened before. The two other halves during this World Cup, France had been kept from getting a shot on goal. But keeping them quiet for nearly 90 minutes was something else entirely. So too was the extra dimension Spain had compared to a team like Paraguay, which frustrated France for much of their round of 16 contest. Now, rather than bunker and pray France would not break through in the style of the South Americans, Spain also put pressure on France with their attack via winger Lamine Yamal, whose speed keeps wide defenders honest, and Dani Olmo, who was happy to push the ball toward the goal Spain was attacking every time he had the ball at his feet, and by a counter press that ensured France's attackers were surrounded any time they got the ball back. Now, even France winning the ball back did not happen enough. Spain manager Luis de la Fuente made the calculation that for France's terrifying attack to put fear into the defense, it would need the ball. His team kept the ball, passed well, and never let Le Bleu get going. It's a team who loves to have control of the game, control of the ball. That's what we let them do, Mbappe told the Fox broadcast after the match. We let the midfield too much time to play, and at the end of the day, the authority to play. It is difficult when you don't change the plan of Spain. So often, Yamal forward Mikhail Oyarzabal and other attackers often steal the headlines, even with Spain having allowed just one goal on the way to the final. Yet, in the semifinal, it once again was Leroy's back four and the midfield duo of Rodri and Fabian Ruiz who shut things down. De La Fuente continues to put Ruiz into the starting 11, even with a healthy Pedri at his disposal. The PSG man's physical size gives him extra presence in the box, but he was everywhere Tuesday, breaking up play and getting into the attacking third when the moment called for it. The decision to stick with Ruiz over Pedri looked better with each game and each performance from Ruiz, who ended the day with 7 defensive contributions, including a block shot in that area. Now that made life easier for the center backs, with Pau Cubarsí, like Yamal, a 19-year-old Barcelona player already playing well beyond his years, turning in a solid performance, and the French-born Aymeric Laporte playing a superb match. The Basque defender would not be beat and made sure that he was in position for the odd number rushes that France is able to get in every match it plays. It would have been a man-of-the-match performance for Laporte, were it not for Porro. His connection with Yamal going forward has been one of Spain's most deadly combinations. They worked well together against France. But it was a link with Olmo that led to Porro scoring his second goal of the tournament. I think it's one of the most important things in the world of soccer. Having the clean sheet behind you helps a ton, Cubarsí said. Maybe there was a bit of chat that the defense, the goalkeeper, was not good, but I think we shut a lot of mouths. We got to another final, and I think it's an impressive job. How many analysts and fans hit the panic button when Spain, a trendy pick to win it all, slumped into a scoreless draw with Cape Verde in its opener? How context changes things. We learned of Vozino, and the Cape Verde defense, of course. But that also was the soft launch of De La Fuente's lockdown defense. There were modifications needed to make the team work right. Porro started the next match and essentially won the starting role. Ruiz had to be given more latitude. Now, that Spain team that seemed not enough is a win away from a second World Cup title win. Those matches are where stars are made. And it could be the moment for Yamal, for Olmo, or any other scoring hero to write their names forever in the history books. But the highlight reel editor should be ready too to cut together a reel of Ruiz's best blocks, of Laporte's best tackles, Perro's top transitions from defense to attack. Because those who make edits of France's top stars, of Mbappe's brilliance, Elise's ingenuity, Dembele's dribbling, are going to have to work with from the semifinal. Will have little to work with from the semifinal. Spain's back six suffocated the French attack and pushed Leroy into the final.
Red Wings to move on from Steve Yzerman as GM after 7 years. From Kevin Sciver of USA Today. In what has already been an off-season clouded by uncertainty for the Detroit Red Wings, the path ahead just got a bit murkier. Executive Vice President and General Manager Steve Yzerman is moving on from his roster managerial role, the team announced the morning of July 15th. Yzerman will remain with the organization as an advisor to the team's governor and CEO, Chris Illick, and handle day-to-day operations. But the Wings are beginning the search for a new roster manager. The move comes while Star center Dylan Larkin's trade request hangs in the ether, which has proved to be difficult to comply with. Reports indicate Larkin's trade destinations list includes the Vegas Golden Knights, Minnesota Wild, and Florida Panthers, with the Dallas Stars also floated as a candidate, though the latter is unconfirmed. Yzerman joined the organization after a wildly successful tenure with the Tampa Bay Lightning in April of 2019, sparking enthusiasm among a fan base that hadn't made the playoffs since the 2015-16 season. He failed, however, to make the postseason in his homecoming, and the historically successful Red Wings now have the longest active drought in the NHL at 10 seasons, after the Buffalo Sabres ended their drought last season. Steve's lifetime of contributions to the Red Wings has meant more to this franchise than words can truly express, and I have the highest level of respect for this continued commitment to our organization, Illick said in a statement released by the team on July 15th. We are thankful for Steve's hard work and dedication as general manager and are grateful knowing Steve will remain where he belongs, here with the Red Wings family. I am sincerely grateful to Chris and the entire Illick family, Yzerman said. This organization has given me incredible opportunities, from my time as a player to the privilege of returning as general manager. I have appreciated every experience throughout the years, and I'm extremely proud to remain part of this great franchise. I'm sorry. You're listening to a reading of today's USA Today on the Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service. The time is 1:44.
Moving into the life section and television, dancing champ rolls with a hosting gig. Ralphie Aversa of USA Today writes, Robert Irwin is both a Dancing with the Stars champ and a wildlife conservationist. Faced with a would you rather of dancing a jive on live TV or dealing with a crocodile death roll, Irwin responds in an instant. I'll take the crocodile any day. Irwin, who's 22, tells USA Today, while promoting ABC's new series, Dancing with the Stars, The Next Pro, Mondays at 8 p.m. Eastern Time, which he hosts. You know, crocodiles are going to try and kill you every time, but you don't know what's going to happen out there on that floor. Now, a death roll is a powerful and violent twisting that wrenches limbs from sockets and muscle from bone. When a crocodile clamps onto a morsel and does its best impression of a washer-on spin cycle, according to a 2019 Scientific American article. In an appearance May 4th on The Tonight Show, starring Jimmy Fallon, Irwin revealed that he dealt with the maneuver during an encounter with a crocodile he named after the late-night host. Irwin, who appears on The Next Pro alongside judges Mark Ballas and his mother Shirley, and a rotating cast of guests, does find a common thread between zookeeping and ballroom dancing. This idea of putting your body on the line for stuff you really love and that you're passionate about and working hard, and I think that really helped, he says, of his transition into the ballroom and now ballroom hosting. But also the importance of passion is everything. Dancing and wildlife conservation couldn't be more different. But the people that you find in both of these professions are exactly the same. And for me, being in a room full of incredibly passionate people, that's how I grew up. That's what made me who I am today. My family, my dad particularly, are the most passionate people I know. And to have that on Dancing with the Stars, The Next Pro, to be full of rooms where it's people that are passionate, positive, lifting each other up, and all are working toward that goal. It's really meaningful. Now, on The Next Pro, 12 up and coming dancers, some of whom have links to the likes of Bad Bunny and Jennifer Lopez, compete in an intense audition process. The winner of the competition lands a spot as a pro on season 35 of Dancing with the Stars, which airs this fall. Irwin, who won the Len Goodman Mirror Ball Trophy in season 34 with pro partner Whitney Carson, jokes that he enjoyed hosting and not having to come under the scrutiny from the judges. I know what it's like to have an incredible pro teaching you, he says, calling Carson the greatest of all time. I felt like a mentor. I felt like I could come in and tell all of these hopefuls how to teach, how to be there for your partner, and what I would want in them if I was dancing with one of them. Irwin also could relate to watching the mother-son duo of Shirley and Mark Ballas working together on set, because he has filmed his family's TV shows with his mother, Terry, in addition to working with her at Australia Zoo. His father, Steve, died in 2006. Irwin was only 2 years old. The Next Pro host says, watching the Ballas duo work, it was really beautiful to watch. Shirley is a championship winner dancer who earned the nickname the Queen of Latin. She's head judge on the BBC competition, Strictly Come Dancing. When you see them come together, arguing and bickering and being like, no, that's not right, you realize these are the two titans of this industry that are so invested and so passionate about these Next Pro hopefuls, he says. They are so invested on every footstep, every move, because these judges know what it is to land this job. That's the biggest thing you will ever get as a dancer.
Damon digs deep for his own Odyssey. From Patrick Ryan of USA Today, when you're making a gritty Greek epic like the Odyssey, CGI arrows simply won't cut it. Matt Damon learned that the hard way when director Christopher Nolan insisted he take up archery to play fierce warrior and king Odysseus in the big-budget behemoth in theaters July 17th. Before filming started, the actor says he spent months practicing how to knock an arrow in his Brooklyn apartment. If I was watching a movie, I would just sit on my couch and speed load, recalls Damon, who estimates that he rehearsed the move thousands of times. It was very repetitive. That was a totally useless skill that I picked up for this movie that's still with me. I don't know that I'll ever need to use it for anything, but it was just one of those weird things I learned. In the Odyssey, Nolan punishingly puts Damon through the ringer as Odysseus, who spends 10 years lost at sea after blinding a Cyclops and angering Poseidon. The A-lister has done plenty of grueling, high-stakes action in The Martian, Saving Private Ryan, and the Bourne franchise. But portraying Odysseus, he was tasked with smashing swords, scaling mountains, and sailing tempestuous waters, all while spiraling about the state of humanity. Reading the script, I felt like this was the best role I've ever been offered, says Damon, 55, seated in a downtown hotel on a recent afternoon. It's such an iconic character, and he goes through so much, internally and physically. It was an extraordinary opportunity. The Odyssey is Damon's third project with Nolan after 2014's Interstellar and 2023's Oppenheimer, in which he played supporting roles as a two-faced scientist and a no-nonsense army officer, respectively. But he gets the chance to dig much deeper as the Odysseus who carries profound regret after orchestrating the sacking of Troy, which resulted in the massacre of innocent civilians. The callous attack makes him lose faith in people and our capacity for good. Anybody with a news feed can understand Odysseus' point of view, Damon says. This traffics in a lot of the same themes as Oppenheimer. So much of it is about him feeling a sense of complicity and responsibility in what is going to be the end of civilization. It's why the character is so interesting to play in Chris' version, because he is carrying a huge weight. The film jumps around in time and reveals why he's behaving the way he does. In one of the most memorable scenes from Homer's 2,800-year-old poem, Odysseus ties himself to a ship mast and orders his crew to plug their ears with beeswax so as to not be lured in by the dulcet yet deadly songs of the sirens. Nolan's movie is uniquely devastating in that it plants the camera firmly on Damon and watches as he has a tearful breakdown about all that's been burdening him. It's a very important sequence in the film, and it required a performer like Matt just giving everything, Nolan says. I felt pretty guilty, actually. I mean, I strapped him to a mast for 3 days, and he was just putting himself through it. But he got it. Damon credits Nolan for his beautiful writing of that scene, but also for giving him the freedom to do as many takes as he needed until he was pleased with his performance. I knew what I had to do and how exactly it was going to unfold. And then I just had to go and have an existential crisis, he says, laughing. That's my job. He told me exactly what Odysseus was hearing in the siren song. And there are so many things in our own lives that are personal that you can just put in there. Damon trained rigorously with stunt coordinator George Cottle to master the movie's dizzying combat choreography, which the Oscar winner likens to learning ballroom dance. He also adopted a strict gluten-free diet and workout regimen 6 months ahead of time, regularly checking in with Nolan and the film's wardrobe team to ensure he had the lean but strong physique of a soldier fighting for survival. It was a real lifestyle overhaul in a way that I hadn't ever done, Damon says. It changed my body completely, but we were really intentional about it. At one point in one of these costume fittings, a month or two before we started shooting, Nolan said, "What weight are you at now?" I told him, and he said, "Okay, lock that in. Don't lose any more." And that was kind of it. I had my marching orders. Before even remarkable as Damon's grizzled all-natural facial hair, another edict from Nolan that turned heads with the actor's wife, Luciana, and 4 daughters. Like any movie problem, the best solve is practical one, Damon says with a grin. If I was going to be thrown into the water, a hand-laid beard would just come off in salt water. He was like, the only solution is just to have the beard. So I had a big bushy beard for a year or so. My kids thought I looked like Santa Claus.
Moana is just part of Miranda's busy year. Patrick Ryan, in a movie review, writes, Lin-Manuel Miranda has set up permanent residence in the House of Mouse. Since 2015 Star Wars The Force Awakens, the Pulitzer Prize winner has acted in and written original music for a variety of Disney movies, including Encanto, Mary Poppins Returns, Mufasa the Lion King, and the live-action The Little Mermaid. The latter is particularly fitting, given that Part of Your World is one of his all-time favorite songs. Everything I know, I learned from Howard Ashman and Alan Menken, says Miranda, who ranks the legendary Disney lyricist and composer among his personal heroes. My songs sound different than theirs, but I'm basically just trying to do the same thing, find the specific words that only that character could sing. Now, for Moana, now in theaters, that's a live-action remake of Disney's 2016 animated hit, Miranda returns with buoyant new end credit songs along the way. The anthem is a passing of the torch from original voice actress Auli'i Cravalho to new star Catherine Lagaya, with a playful rap verse from Dwayne Johnson's Maui thrown in for good measure. In addition to Moana, Miranda recently wrapped filming Octet, which is his second directorial outing, and starring Amanda Seyfried and Rachel Zegler. He is bringing his wildly anticipated Hamilton follow-up, Warriors, to Broadway next spring after a 2024 concept album. And his musical, In the Heights, will also return to New York with a special gala production in October. We chat with Miranda, age 46, about all of that and more. This interview has been edited and condensed for clarity. Question. Dwayne Johnson said, he's been rapping You're Welcome into kids' phones for the past 10 years. How did you wish to up the ante with his verse in along the way? Well, he has also done some rapping since then. He's got that verse on that Tech N9 song Face Off, and it's way faster. I was like, okay, you can't pretend that this is not your thing when you're doing verses with Tech 90. Who's the fastest rapper in the world? So I took inspiration from that verse, like, let me give you some really tricky bars.
You've been listening to a reading of USA Today for Thursday, July 16, 2026. We read USA Today weekdays at noon. For more information, call 716-821-5555. Your readers today have been
Ken Drost
and Jim Duffy.
If you're listening to this publication online, you're probably using our website, a podcast player like Spotify or iTunes, a streaming service like Siro, or a smart speaker. Did you know that we now have a dedicated app that can be downloaded to any mobile device, like a smartphone or tablet, for free? App users can conveniently access our live stream and any episode of our podcast easier than ever. To download the app, just type NFRRS in the search window in the Apple App Store or in the Google Play Store. Contact us anytime if you have any questions by calling 716-821-5555, extension 5. Thank you. following program is intended for listeners who are blind, have low vision, or have another print disability.